Hello and welcome. We have ourselves another bonus action, and that's right, that's a bonus action where me, Andrew, Will, Sam, and Brendan all talk about what's been going on in the world of Out of the Abyss. We're going to start out this time talking about Blingdenstone, Part 2. That's episodes 96 to 101 with a nice, girthy, big 100 episode celebration in the middle there, so there's a lot to talk about. For the uninitiated or those who don't remember, like me, this was a long arc where we mastered the challenges of the Rock Blight and then sought a mysterious new friend, in quotations, because that became her name, to help the wear-out folks of Blingdenstone. We then travel to the strange cavern of the Dreamer. Starcaller gets some sick new ink, and they discover a new mythical forge of the Starforger. And then battle the Ifrit who was helping to power it. Starcaller was bravely assassinated by a trapped chest, while the rest of the party fought for their lives and eventually conquered the otherworldly outsider. Luckily, Hestor and Scylla know how to do stuff. Whilst they chill out, the residents of Blingdenstone battle for their lives against the army of the Pudding King. Oh yeah, and then Safel came back. When the S crew back together again, they had a showdown with the infamous Pudding King. So let's talk about it. First off the bat, hey Will, what the hell's friend? What sort of Faustian ass trip were you on when you dreamed this one up?
So it's been a while, and sadly I don't have a ton of character notes, but I do still have her sheet up. But from what I remember, especially with talking Brendan about the were-rats of Blingdenstone, and like everything that they had been through, and we had kind of semi-decided off of what was both in the book and what sounded good character-wise and story-wise. I kind of knew a couple of the things that you guys were headed in for, and I was like, okay, the thing about this campaign, if everybody isn't aware of it now, if you're not running it or haven't clearly caught on with the story, it's very NPC heavy. And there's quite a bit that are supposed to be around to help the party. So one friend, or as I had originally called her, just the witch, she was one of the original inhabitants and founders of Blingdenstone. That was my original intention, and through some of her practices and some of the kind of heinous things that she had done during the original war with the Proal, she had ended up getting cursed, and which had twisted her form, made her grow a little bit longer, become kind of more feral, and has since spent the centuries alone, shunned, and kind of trying to atone for a lot of what she had done. And so that was kind of like where that was at. And this moment of potentially getting to help the party and the city was kind of like this mini redemption arc for her, while providing you essentially an extra body with some magical means for the fights that were going to be coming up. So that was kind of her thing. I didn't have an actual name for her because like this curse has stripped most of like her former knowledge, and she has like chosen to try and push away a lot of that, simply because of like some of the things that she had did, and she wanted to truly like form a new life. So that was Friend's deal.
Yeah, I forgot that Scylla named her when we were there. And I think there was a very real possibility that we just killed her.
Oh yeah, you guys were like, we do not interact with vibe.
No, that's true, Brendan.
I mean, honestly,
and we've left a trail of blood in our wake.
That's the fact that Scylla names an NPC and then dispatches them is like a 50-50 shot.
Could happen. No, they were great though. because there was a lot happening in there of like we were traveling for a while, we were on like trippy acid trips. And so
Mhm.
like there was a moment where we didn't even know if like somebody was real or if they were like in a dream state or if we were in a dream state. Like it was all very
Oh yeah, when you got to the stone giant tattoo.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Everything
Yeah.
with the
yeah.
dreamer was so surreal.
Yeah. Can we talk about that tattoo?
Yeah. Also, like, Will, all I wanted, I just wanted to be able to cast Find Familiar, and you made me go on an acid trip.
Yeah. Absolutely. What I don't understand.
Well,
You don't do that every time you get a
You
tattoo?
had to you had to find your familiar beyond the material plane, dude.
I guess I had to go find it and then never remember to cast it in Conklin.
Yeah.
and then
Did you
and then
ever
at the end of this
cast
arc,
it?
I did.
Yeah,
I did
the
twice, Aquila, but
Aquila.
he almost always immediately got swooshed,
Yeah.
and then I switched subclasses, and it didn't matter anymore.
It was all for nothing.
For really, Aquila is like my Arachnos. You know, he was there for a little bit. And
Yeah,
then
it was a
just got-
fun bit.
It
It was
a
a
good
real
bit.
fun bit.
We all have an Arachnos because mine was D'Artagnan, who was in the
That's
first
true.
episode and never came back.
Yeah.
And then you also had Oshni with Laura.
Oh yeah, and
before.
Oshni with Laura.
Yes.
Everybody's got an Arachnos.
Wow,
This-
all of
this-
your companions have left you into the water.
Oh man.
Dang, yeah.
Oshni just like swam off like, fuck this, I'm not dealing with them.
Maybe
Well,
it
D'Artagnan, to be fair, you couldn't bring with you because he was more of an
Yeah.
aquatic lizard than a riding lizard. So
is. Yeah.
I like the
No,
narrative that all
yeah.
of Sam's companions leave her better.
Wow. Wow. Okay, well,
I mean,
this is like telling that the future of the storyline is that we all go into water and I force you to leave me.
If you keep trying to kill us, that might be the
That's
truth.
just called, Sam. That's just called drowning.
I know. It's just murder.
Sam's like, oh yeah, I've totally cast this protective bubble around all of you because I spend a lot of money getting these things. You all get
Yeah.
down there. There's Dagon. She's like, hey, guess what? I work for him. Bubble gone.
Yeah.
And
Dispel.
The
Dispel.
long
She was playing the
con.
long game.
Yeah, right.
Always
No.
is.
Come help me defeat my boss.
Yeah.
So this is my dad.
Mhm.
I mean, honestly, would I be surprised if Scylla's dad was Dagon? Yes. Would I be like that surprised?
With the madness table and my
Yeah.
DMing, who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows?
That's interesting.
All right, and in this arc, a little bit later on, we do have the reintroduction of everyone's favorite squid-faced magicianer, Sephel. So, Brendan, who's your favorite to play, Sephel or Hestor's Tonetooth, and why is it Sephel?
Go for the throat, my dude. Okay, so I'll push back a little bit. I will say there is a factor of Hestor that I got to explore that Sephel will never really scratch for me, and that is the Hestor's whole goal was building and collection of community.
Mhm.
Bringing people together because of all of the division that he had seen in his life, and that was a very different goal set to play around with, and something that Sephel is like, yeah, he's becoming a little more empathetic, and friends matter more to him than they ever did, but he's a task oriented person more so. It is ultimately Sephel, and I think that's just a factor of having spent more time with him and been through all of those changes in his character. But Hestor definitely got to scratch some itches that I don't think Sephel could touch on.
Nice. So, which one was your favorite to throttle? Sephel or Tonetooth?
Oh man, it's never Sephel. It's everybody else. You know, there's a creepy, scary looking creature bond there.
Yeah.
You
Game
know?
recognizes game.
That's right. Yeah.
No, I think this is going back a couple arcs, but talking about that, I do really think being on trial in front of the city of Ember the first time was like that glue moment
Oh yeah.
for Scylla and Sefel of like, oh, half of this is just because you can't trust who we are.
Yeah. And
Fuck
it was
all of you.
like, well, we're in this together, Sefal.
Yeah.
Let's burn this place down.
Yeah. Trauma bonding.
The best relationships are forged in fire of
That's
other people's
right.
houses.
Yeah.
Of other people's houses.
Hell yeah.
Nice.
Hell yeah.
Excellent. All right, let's talk pudding. Pudding King, that is.
Oh, you want to jump straight to pudding? You don't want
I
to talk
want-
about any of the other stuff?
I want to talk about pudding, Will.
Okay.
Oh, I guess we
about
talk.
pudding.
I mean, like, listen. Are we gonna dwell on the fact that I got like knocked out and almost murdered by a mundane chest?
We should. We
Yeah,
definitely
we should talk
should.
about that.
Okay, I guess we could. So curiosity nearly killed the cat in the legendary forge of the Starforger. So I guess how was handling that entire battle without me?
This for me was the moment where I was truly like, okay, we have to be very careful around Starcaller because he has his own agenda.
Mhm.
And it was I will admit it was a little meta because like what does Scylla know? Like I think she
Sure.
knew some stuff, but there was a certain amount of player realization here of like, oh shit, Starcaller is he's got his own gambit happening.
Mhm.
And so, you know, part of me was like, okay, I can get to him. And I remember I remember like sprinting and using Misty Step to get to you. And that was me combating the meta. You're welcome. But ultimately, like fighting the battle was crazy. Cause I remember the hallways were tricky.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, we hadn't even fully explored the halls yet either. There was like one path down, one path over. We were like, Starcaller disappeared somewhere and he hasn't come back.
Yeah.
I hope we
Gone.
find him.
Right. Well, what was when we all got a wish.
Mhm.
How are you feeling about that?
Yeah,
You
did
give people a
did you
wish,
see
like-
that going well?
No, I didn't. So, actually, there was like a whole other. So there was like two main ways I could see it going, and it wasn't until like you guys got to the point where you were like finally figuring out and passing all your checks on what was in the gem and everything that I was like, oh shit. Because this seems to be a thing in my campaigns is like I throw a lot of hard shit at you guys and then I'll throw you a bunch of good loot, but I always forget the tenacity for you guys to like weirdly pick up on the secret hidden stuff that then just gives you ridiculous things. You guys were good, especially when it came to the wishes, and I respect you for it because I was totally gonna evil genie it with this Ifrit if you weren't specific about your wording.
Oh yeah, we were very specific. I remember that.
Yep.
Yeah, you guys wrote it down, and I
There
was
was a
I was
lot
like,
of drafting
good,
happening.
good,
Yeah.
yeah.
We were rules lawyering.
I
Yeah.
also remember, phone calls with you between those recordings of like
Yeah.
how badly can he fuck us over? Like how specific do we have to be before this is a problem?
I like how you say how badly can he fuck us over. Will, how badly can you fuck us over?
Oh, that's
Oh,
always the implication.
Yeah.
That is
So
always
bad.
the implication.
Yeah. It's indirect, but I know it's me.
I actually have a little bit of a branch off question related to the wish. So Sefel used his wish to break off the new connection that he had with Orcus. What was the trajectory plan for that?
Yeah.
Had I not done that?
So two things. One, from what I remember of your wish, and we could go back to the official writing, you wish to get your phylactery from him.
Sure.
That was
right.
the more specific part of it.
Ooh, that. Brennan, are you
So
connected?
you might be, because the other thing you got to remember
Sure.
is Orcus is the demon lord of undead. And
Right.
there was a time period where he was a literal god of death. Like he fully ascended in Orcus's history, and he has since fallen, but he is very close to reascending.
So what you're telling me is I'm not free at all, and I should be very scared.
Potentially.
I think-
Potentially.
Yeah, and I don't feel like that's that knowledge would not be surprising to Sefel, but it would be surprising to Brendan.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Possibly.
And
Yeah.
I'm mostly surprised that the deities in D&D work like a European soccer league where they get relegated if they their power levels dip.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's rough.
Oh, I think it was
Bad season for
God,
Orcus and the boys. Back down
It's-
to level B.
I forget which god it was, but Orcus like legitimately killed a god and essentially through that was able to ascertain enough power to ascend and held it for like a good long while. And I forget what it was that struck him back down. But that is his goal, is to essentially get back to that, because like Orcus is a legitimate threat. Like, not that any of the demon lords aren't, but he is like, there's a reason why he's considered one of the big three of the demon lords.
Mhm.
But yeah, like
he's smart too. Like he's like a lot
Yeah.
of the demon
Yeah,
lords
Yeah.
are like
I think you said he was
chaos monkeys.
one of the most intelligent, right?
Like less
Uh,
bestial.
yes, I think out of the top like 7, you could honestly consider him the most like straight up intelligent of
Mhm.
them all.
And I think like intelligence is part of it, but I think also just like he has self control in a way that a lot of the other ones don't.
Yeah,
Mhm.
he's a planner and a thinker. That
Yeah, like
makes him super dangerous.
Especially
Mhm.
against us. We don't plan.
Sure don't.
No.
Yeah, we'll get into some thoughts about a certain other more beautiful demon lord later.
Well,
But
and Andrew, can I ask you something real quick?
no, hit me up.
Because your wish was your complete change in class, or
Mhm.
like,
Yeah.
tell us about that, like your thought process
Yeah,
in
yeah,
reworking Starcaller.
My thought was with his bond with Dawn's Edge, I wanted to kind of explore that. And on the meta power gaming side, I wanted to more effectively feel a niche in our party.
You were tired of
Um,
Starcaller being useless.
Yeah.
I never thought he
Well,
was.
once
No.
Will took my gun away,
Yeah,
That's what it
that
was.
happened.
Yes. So you're
No.
right. You're right.
No, Starcaller was a heavy hitter, but you always struggled with the paladin part of him.
Yeah. and because especially I really shot myself in the foot when I prioritized dexterity in that conquest build, because every enemy worth inflicting a fear effect on has a wisdom saving throw bonus that precludes a DC of 12.
Jesus.
Or 14 or whatever it was. Like, this is
Yeah.
not gonna do it. So it was like a mechanical reworking to make both the conquest of him work and then also kind of like capitalize on that skill set. So like the Hexblade function so well with the conquest build, and then the Blessed Warrior fighting style, so you can use your spells much more effectively and efficiently. So it was partially power scaling on an anime level, and also kind of leaning into some of the stuff we got into, especially when we got into the fight with the Pudding King, and like kind of like scraping more of that darker part of him. Because one of my thoughts with Starcaller always was like he really did undergo a transformation in the Underdark, and that was kind of represented with that roguish subclass. Was like he was or like multi-class, is that he had really changed his fighting style. He was not the honorable like upfront like one-on-one paladin compelled duel type guy anymore. But as we kind of started scraping back those layers, both from what we had written previously and kind of exploring and like feeling and being in the character about what actually he could be and what he would want to be. And this which was the perfect opportunity to kind of like turn that up to 11. I think pretty quickly there we also see a big change in the way he presents himself, and also in the way that those madnesses start accumulating. You'll notice that with a couple of Angel's characters, as those madnesses accumulate, they start to act different.
Which
And
I appreciate.
It was a good time for that. Good, matriculation of variables.
Well, since we're talking about wishes, Sam, walk us through your decision making there.
Well, I truly struggle with Scylla because I really try to play her as like she already thinks she's all powerful. Um, and so I knew I didn't want to wish for anything that like really buffed her, but I knew that there was really never going to be a way for me to get a ton of closure on Scylla's backstory, just because of the nature of it being in the Dark Lake and it being really far away, and like the fact that her community is gone. Like there's like certain difficulties around like getting more information out of a backstory like that without completely derailing the story. And I knew that I was like extremely curious about the Naute. And I was like, "Oh, let's just see, let's just see what can we do here? What will Will allow?" And I mean, Will, all we got to do is play into your dastardly desire to like delve into ancient civilizations, and you're there.
It's true.
So,
Oh yeah.
It's really true.
yeah.
No, it was really fun, especially like because I asked for you guys to all give me your specific wording for your wishes ahead of time. And I remember it was one of my favorite times to bring in both backstory and character stuff that you guys had been working on forever to write those little snippet scenes. Like Safel, you have been dealing with your memory this entire time.
Yeah.
And so getting this part of your soul back was huge. And like
Yeah.
we got to explore through your bachelor party a huge part of your backstory, which was so much fun.
Such a good time.
Sam and Andrew made phenomenal fucking characters that I miss all the time. It was great. And then I was like, okay, we need to be able to share a little bit of this with the audience. And so like I had a lot of fun of like bringing back the old memory that you had already seen and like revealing more depth to it that had kind of been warped due to the illithid beings and everything else you had gone through. Andrew, yours, especially like you, I wish I had been able to do more with Dawn's Edge and Starcaller, like more role play wise. Like I think that's one of my difficulties as a DM, and especially in this campaign, is like how NPC heavy it is. I think one of my biggest regrets was not having a better NPC cheat sheet for like character work. But I really loved writing that scene, and it was so funny to me. One of my favorite games ever is The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess.
Are you talking about fighting the old hero of time?
Yes,
Yes.
like those
100
dreamscapes.
fucking
That is a
percent.
deep cut, and I love it.
Oh,
That was like, I was like, yes. And I knew Dawn's Edge was an angelic being, and I think I think they were like some type of battle angel initially, and so like I wanted that old mentor vibe, because you and I had also discussed like there was this fight happening in Starcaller between the dark and the light with the madnesses, and then Dawn's Edge also very much wanting to like reach the surface, and them being an angelic being. It was this cool back and forth. So like that was really fun to write up, and I was like so down to explore that with you. And then Sam, we have talked like on and off, because sadly, like you're right, we haven't had a whole lot of stuff in the Deep Lake or the Dark Lake, and you gave me so many good points, and we have talked about it over and over and over. And I created the Naute because you came up with all these beautiful things, these new sections of the Dark Lake that never existed.
Yeah.
And I was like, I have to build on this. And to
Yeah, maybe we'll
ahead.
publish a little Dark Lake supplement, a little
Oh, I think
madness
that would be
table,
badass.
Dark
Yeah.
Lake. Yeah, that'd be kind of cool.
Love that.
The artwork would be amazing too, especially for
Yeah.
like the way I pictured the fortress, especially from that scene. But I very much wanted to give you a more satisfying deep dive into a lot of what you had created and what I had built upon. So yeah, no, it was probably some of the most satisfying writing that I got to do.
It was a lot of fun as a
in this
player to
time.
listen to like each of our wishes. Like I felt like they were very satisfying.
I love anytime like it's not just like a okay, there you go. You know, it had it had depth to it. Which was
you got to work for it a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
Speaking of working for it, we got put to work with some new characters and new mechanics during the Battle of Blingdenstone.
Yeah.
Will, what inspired you to go all Warhammer-ish on this, and team? How'd you feel having these like larger combat encounters and like more like warfare like strategy sessions?
Well, jeez, crow. It was so us doing this in a podcast medium always presents its own set of challenges. And with us rapidly approaching episodes 100 and kind of wanting to do something special without it being 30 episodes long, like it was originally intended, like you would go room by room with 100 plus NPCs. And I was like, this would be great for a 8 to 10 hour like all day sesh, you're here with your buddies and you're like, clear the fucking day. We're just doing this. Traditional dungeon crawl. And so I was like, how do I get that epicness into a shorter time frame that's enjoyable for everybody? And that's kind of where I was like, all right, let's do some big units. Let's get everybody involved, because if you did it individually, you might not have interacted so much with the Were Rats or the Stoneheart Enclave, or even like the Diggermatics and the rest of the community. And there was lots of moving pieces that I wanted to be able to like pull up, because again, like being a podcast, we do have to sometimes move a little bit faster than not. So that's kind of where that was. I was more of like, I want the epic impact of what this is. I wanted it to feel more like this is a citywide fucking problem and a war, because it is literally this section in the book is called literally the Battle for Blingdenstone. So that's what I wanted it to feel like.
I do think, to your credit, you captured the scale of it perfectly. Like doing it in that kind of RTS zoomed out view really hammered home the scale of, oh, this is not singular events. We're not going into this building and there's a couple slimes here moving on to the next. There's more stuff here. Like, this was a full battle going on the whole time. All of Blingdenstone was going through it, and every second mattered. So I really think that strategy, the way you went about it, hammered home the importance of it. I like that better, honestly.
I'm glad that worked. I'm glad I hit that point for you guys, or at least for Brendan.
You definitely did. Because I had never played a game that had those kind of mechanics. So that was really, really cool.
Yeah. I think that's one thing that is like the D&D's rules struggle with is scale. Okay, it's meant to be a squad skirmishing game. But you did a great job of melding the rules with the space to really kind of make it feel exciting. And for the folks who watch on YouTube, or for us, it's fun to like see that like town map become a battle map, which is like not what you kind of expect. You know what I mean? It's a kind of a subversion of expectations. And speaking of subversion of expectations, the Pudding King, who on paper, Will, if you had just described to me this character, I would have been like, "Yo, Will, that's stupid." But the way you played the king and the nuance of him and like the slow build of it made this scrawny bastard a real threat, and like one of my favorite like antagonists from our campaign so far. Like, I am interested to know like how much of both his character and like the encounter set in the Pudding Court, where's the line between your mad mind and the content as written by the company
Wizards
that
of the
makes
Coast.
the books. Yeah, those guys.
The company that makes
that sad company. So the Pudding King, as written, is actually a really low level wizard.
Really?
He's incredibly fucking weak. And it's such I remember when I was first reading through the book, I'm like, you're literally going to make him go through this entire goddamn battle. And then they're going to reach this guy in any modern, like maybe this would have been different if you had just started 5th edition back in 2014, 2015 when this book came out, like because of the more limited subclasses.
Yeah, players were also a lot more scaled down than they are today.
Exactly. But I was just like, there's no way I could be satisfied as a player going through this fucking huge ass war scene to reach this guy who's the equivalent of like a level 5 wizard. And not that he was alone, because the 2 slimes that you guys fought that he called his children, they were supposed to originally be in the fight with him. They had names too. I don't think we ever got into that. It was Princess Ebenmeyer and Prince Livid. Those were the 2 oozes, like right before you got in,
Yeah.
that were like really coming after you guys. And like even together, they weren't much of a challenge. And it also felt very dishonest to the Jubilex, the Demon Lord, because he is far more sinister than I think a lot of people give him credit.
That's my boy right
So
there.
I was like, I need to beef this up. So phase 1, where he was like his little deep gnome self, that's rules as written Deep King or Pudding King. Like that was the whole
That's
fight.
it.
And you guys tanked through that so fast. And so what I decided to do was like, I was like, okay, there are, and I forget which book, it might be the Dungeon Master's Guide, the original one. There are boons for worshipers of demon lords. And I was like, oh, let's take a look at that. And I was like, interesting. And then I was like, let's take it a step further. And like, this is a dude that's fully dedicated himself. Let's make him more. And so I didn't think I had these pages. I actually had one of our listeners, who's running this game, like, I fucking loved that fight. Can you send me what you wrote up for the Pudding King? And so I sent it, and I have the old images here. But I gave like his whole second form, and some of his abilities are directly from Jubilex or slight plays off of Jubilex and his previous edition abilities. So like the pseudopod attacks, some of his limited spells, his lair actions are very similar. The other thing that I did, which I think you have actually on a question here, is kind of like the getting the knowledge and the secrets and throwing it back out at you guys. That actually comes from one of the oozes that I used in the war and was part of the whole Tammy thing, which we'll talk about in a minute. I think it was actually one of the creatures made by an individual and sent into Wizards of the Coast. And I forget, I think it's like the Oblex.
Ooh, the
which can
Ooblex.
Ooblex, yeah, that can
Yes.
assimilate people.
Yeah.
They can like they gain all the knowledge there. And I was like, well, fucking Jubilex is the Demon Lord of Oozes. The Pudding King is his chosen champion. He's gonna have that ability.
Hell yeah.
That was kind of what that was about.
Like,
Yeah.
and there's nothing y'all like when you open up your like Discord app and there's like a note for Will that says, "Hey, would you mind writing up your character's darkest memory for me, real quick?"
Yeah.
Like no big deal. Like I'm not gonna use it or anything. I just need to know.
Send me a secret that your character really wouldn't want the party to know.
Yeah.
I think was the wording.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. Well, I had to be like, we have to do the deep nitty gritty stuff, because also we don't always get to role play those cool things.
It was great though, because immediately after that fight was some of the deepest role play that the party had, especially around Starcaller and sort of like the motives there. I think we spent almost an entire session after that just like, what the fuck was that?
Yes. One of our most controversial episode names, an emotional TPK. It wasn't a TPK that was emotional, it was just our emotions.
We separated emotionally.
Yeah, there was a lot of bit of clickbait in that title.
Yeah. I can't imagine who wrote that one. But honestly, Will, this is one of my favorite features, because I feel like that's, mechanicizing role play is such a cool tool that is not
Mhm.
really a part of the core like skill set, but it was so impactful and make that fight so memorable. Because like I said, the Pudding King just like a dude. We're not
Yeah.
fighting him. We're fighting ourselves in like a
Mhm.
meaningful way, which was very satisfying.
This was a big moment for turning against Starcaller.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It really went
Yeah,
from
I'm sorry you couldn't handle the truth.
your
No,
desire for conquest and all
it
things.
was a very strange, like, good moment for Sefel, because it was he sort of always bridged those two mindsets of like, we need to be working towards good and ending this problem, but you also kind of need to be an asshole to do that, and like, where is the line where that becomes detrimental?
Mhm.
Right.
It's like,
right.
I got where Starcaller was coming from, but like, is he going too deep?
Yeah.
If there's nothing else, my post Indigo characters are here to forge a bond between Scylla and Sefel. It's my
It
primary
really
function
has
and
worked
role.
out that way.
And
Like,
we thank you because
since Indigo, we'll see, when Indigo died, the trauma closed our hearts to any of your characters. So we
You'll
were just
never
like,
break in.
you and me to the end, and
That's right.
fuck that new guy.
Yeah. You're just an NPC at this point, man.
But yeah, hey.
And you know how
That's
Scylla
my
feels
role.
about NPCs.
Yes. Can
I was,
she eat them?
Yeah, I know.
I was saying it to Brendan earlier before we actually started recording. I think Blingdenstone is one of my top arcs, if not the top, and mostly because of what you guys were able to do, especially in the 100 episode, like, big climactic stuff, and this boss fight, which was like the first time I was like, okay, I want this to feel like a boss fight. But normally, especially with a lot of this stuff, and I think it was how it was early written and how I normally play, I was like, I want to deviate. I don't want to just hit you. I want to make it different. And I feel a deep sense of satisfaction and pride in myself for coming up with that stuff, and then getting to watch the wonderful ass shit that you guys got to come up with and role play afterwards. I don't think there's anything more satisfying as seeing that, like, here's a gamble I'm going to try, and seeing an immediate payout that was like, oh, I do hope all of our listeners felt a lot of deep satisfaction in those episodes, like we all seem to have. So
Couldn't agree more.
Absolutely. And I think that's where we're going to put a bow on this episode of Bonus Action with Will's deep satisfaction. We'll see you next time on the Madness Table. Hit us up on Discord, follow us on social media, drop us a penny on Coffee, spelled KOFI, or Patreon, if you want Will to be deeply satisfied.